Hello once again from Providence's main deck. Able seaman Erasmus Barlow here with a bit of practical seamanship calculated as the first step in transforming even the sorriest collection of landlubbers into a right proper man-of-war's company. To that end, I shall today be teaching you how to tie that king of all knots, the bowline. The bowline is a venerable old knot indeed. In 1691, Captain John Smith of Jamestown fame mentioned the knot in his Sea Grammar, stating, "The bowline knot is so firmly made and fastened by the bridles into the cringles of the sails, they will break or the sails split before it will slip." Never mind about bridles or cringles for now. What Captain Smith means to say is that the bowline is such a strong knot that his very sails could be torn to ribbons ere the bowlines holding them in place would come loose. That may be our first written reference to the bowline, but odds are the knot is older than that. Much older in point of fact. We have evidence that the bowline, or a knot very much like it, was used in the barge of Egyptian pharaoh Khufu 4,500 years ago. Makes old John Smith look downright recent, eh? But perhaps you are wondering what a bowline is used for. Traditionally, we use them as fastener knots for lines running forward from the sails to the bow of the ship. These lines are rather confusingly called bowlines themselves, or bowlines. They keep the sails bowed or bellied out, preventing them from backing when sailing close hauled. They are important lines, and there is even an old sailor shanty called Haul on the Bowline that is sung when, well, hauling on the bowlines. More broadly though, we use the bowline anytime we need to put an eye or loop in the end of a line. They have the advantage of being able to take a great deal of strain without pulling so tight that they are difficult to untie. This makes them perfect for mooring, hoisting, hauling, fastening, and any number of other shipboard tasks. Learn how to tie a proper bowline, and I am quite certain that you yourselves shall find ample uses for them in your daily lives. There are many different methods you can choose from, but today I shall be demonstrating 3. Watch closely and follow along yourselves as I demonstrate the correct technique. Begin with a bend in the line facing toward yourself. In the standing end of the rope, make a loop so that the bitter end is over the standing end. Take the bitter end in your right hand and pass it through the loop from underneath. Take the bitter end and pass it around the underside of the standing end and back through the loop you have just made. Pull tight, and you have your bowline. That's the way in which most people first learn to tie a bowline, but there are many other methods as well. Richard Henry Dana Jr., author of 2 Years Before the Mast, described this technique in his treatise on practical seamanship. Take the end of a rope in your right hand and the standing part in your left. Lay the end over the standing part, and with your left hand, make a bite in the standing part over it. Take the end under the lower standing part, up over the cross, and down through the bite. If you found that a bit confusing, never despair. Here is the same method oriented in a way that is easier for most people to understand while still being just as effective. Begin with the bitter end of the line in your right hand and the standing end of the line in your left. Cross the bitter end over the standing end. Then flip the bitter end around underneath toward yourself so it forms a loop. Take the bitter end around the underside of the standing end and back through the loop you have just made and pull tight. And there you have it, shipmates. You now know how to tie one of the most important knots in any sailor's repertoire. With a little bit of practice, you yourselves shall be tying bowlines as handily as any marlinspike sailor now afloat. Remember to check back in regularly, as I shall be discussing other points of seamanship from time to time, reading excerpts of maritime literature, and of course, showing you more of our dear Providence. Until next week then, shipmates, goodbye and fare thee well.